Hey everyone, you join me in mid-conversation with Dr. Mo, emergency physician, British Australian, beast from the Middle East. That was his nickname because this man is a jiu-jitsu champion, also a rugby player, but he's most importantly a doctor, a man who's part of the Flotilla Coalition, who's gone to Gaza, Palestine several times. He has Palestinian heritage. He was on the flotilla with Greta. You've seen him on international news. The first time I met him was I was watching him when we were both on Piers Morgan, and he was so eloquent, compassionate, humane, and he was so powerful that Piers Morgan was just rendered speechless. And then I had to come on afterwards and debate an insane psychopath, Mo, if you remember.
Yeah.
But the framing of today is how the United States is complicit in Israel's humanitarian crisis and genocide against the Palestinians. And people, the reason why I framed it this way, folks, is I think people really need to sit with what's happening to the children, to the civilians. I don't think people gloss it over and you see the photos, but Dr. Mo's been there. He has treated these children. He will tell you what the IDF is doing. And then the second part, especially for an American audience, that is sobering is that this genocide and this humanitarian crisis and the conditions that Dr. Mo will describe could not have happened without United States complicity. And furthermore, Dr. Mo right now is in the United States. He's visiting us right now. And he made some sobering, statements that just hurt me about what he witnessed in the United States and what this money could have done instead of going to Israel and the occupation. Oh, I don't know, Dr. Mo, to mental health services in America or, funding Medicaid. But we'll get to that. You have an amazing story, Dr. Mo. Talk to us about how you became involved with the Flotilla Coalition and what you have done with your services and your training in Gaza in the past 2 years.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. Um, and I'm sorry, by the way, about that Piers Morgan thing, because I think I set that crazy woman off, and you had to deal with it. And I just went back to the green room and just chilled out. Um, Look, the images that you're seeing on your TV screens, I think, has moved millions of people across the world. People who, are not even Muslim, not Arab, not Palestinian. The images have moved people so much that you're seeing college campus students get suspended and expelled and lose their degrees because they're standing up for people that they have nothing in common with. You're seeing journalists in this country and in other countries, like we have Antoinette Lattouf in Australia, losing their jobs just by calling it a genocide or saying that starvation is being used as a weapon of war. You're getting politicians who are getting de-seated because of their position on the Palestine issue. So, this is going on all around the world. And what's happening in Palestine, those images have moved people to their core, that it's made people want to, it's made people willing to give up so much of their life in order to stop what's going on. And I think, as a doctor and as a Palestinian, obviously I was as compelled as anybody else to go and help. And I was there for some of the worst mass casualty events of this war. I was there last year when the Israelis had rescued those 4 Israeli hostages and they killed and injured 1,400 people in a couple of hours. I was there this time round when the night the ceasefire broke, and they killed 200 children in an hour. So, I was there for some of the worst mass casualty events of this war. And, like, people people see, like, the images of people coming into the hospitals and the human carnage. But what they don't see is, because you can scroll past that. You can look at it for 10 seconds, 5 seconds, a glimpse, and be like, whoa, don't want to see that, and scroll up. But when you're in the hospital,
Mm.
right? And mothers are coming in with plastic bags, and inside these plastic bags are the body parts of their children. And you can smell the burnt flesh, and they're handing you these body parts. It's different. And then when you're in an emergency department and the screams are everywhere and the bombs are going off hundreds of meters away from you, and you don't know whether you're going to be hit or not, and you're looking and you're watching children on the floor bleeding out to death. You're watching kids on the floor severely injured, no painkillers, and all their families are dead. Like, you can't scroll past that. And you watch a kid who's got like 80% body burns, and you don't even have painkillers for this kid.
Mm.
Do you know, we put when I work here in Australia or in the UK, we have this like cream that we put on kids and we leave it on for about 30 minutes. And once we wipe away that cream, we can then give them a needle that they don't feel. Right? That's just for a needle. Now imagine if you're a kid and your leg's missing, you've got a tourniquet on, the pain, or your intestines are hanging out and you're still alive, or you've got 60% body burns and we don't have painkillers. That's what's going on in Gaza. That's what's been going on for the last, almost 2 years. And I think for a lot of doctors, and you hear this when a lot of doctors come out, all of them are very, very traumatized at what they
Yeah.
see. And that's why to me, like I was just like, we can't stay silent at this. This is beyond anything I think any of us have ever seen. And it's the consistency of this. It's not just one day where there was carnage and medical supplies had run out. And, this is 2 years sustained effort of, of the killing and the destruction. So, you know, it, it's not even just about like the carnage of what you see. It's also about how this happens. I was there during Ramadan, and we all knew that 15 minutes after the call to prayer, that the bombs would start. And the reason what that is because people would congregate to eat together. And that's when they would start the bombing. They would start the bombing when people would come together to eat. So we would get mass casualty events 15, 20 minutes after the call to prayer because they know everyone's congregating to eat. We would get mass casualty events at 4, 5 o'clock in the morning. Um, where 20 minutes before the call to morning prayer, because we know everyone would congregate to eat before they would start fasting. That's when they would do the bombing. They would have drones that would come down at night making sounds of crying children. They would have drones that would come down at night, and in the Arabic, they would say that you've been abandoned. The Arab world gives us weapons and money, and it sends you shrouds. No one's coming to save you.
Oh, audio
Psychological warfare.
propaganda. Oh, they would just
Yeah.
bring the drones and they would blare it on the speakers.
Yes, yes, yes,
Wow.
yes.
Wow.
This was like the level of cruelty and the sustained effort. When doctors are coming into Gaza, their bags are opened and they're arrested and detained if they've got baby formula in. And then you're seeing children, newborn babies dying after 3, 4 days because the mother's starving, can't produce milk, and there's no baby formula. And then they're taking baby formula out of doctors' bags. And then you've got Netanyahu coming on TV and you've got Israeli spokesman saying that, oh no, there's no starvation. We're not starving people. This is,
And did you see
just to put in.
and Dr. Mo, did you see to prove your point? Did you hear? I mean, just tell us about what happened 2 days ago with the Nasser Hospital, where it was so egregiously bad that Netanyahu had to come out and do his version of an apology for Israel bombing the hospital, and then when civilians went
Changed it.
in to help the people in the bombed hospital, they bombed the civilians
Yeah,
on live television.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that was a double tap strike. That's illegal. It's a war crime. It's a terrorist tactic where you injure people, you wait till help arrives or first responders arrive, and then you kill them, which is what we saw. But that to me was just we saw that every day. I used to see kids coming into the hospital that had been shot in the head by snipers.
Can you talk to us
Kids shot
about
in the
that?
head by
Because Dr. Irfan Galeria and others who have gone, who I know, they said that the most of the children's injuries that they saw was deliberate sniper rifles to the skull, especially when it comes to kids. And then they said when it was to young men, teenagers, men in their 20s, it was to the groin area, to the penis.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, you know, I remember there was this one kid that came in and he had, they had gunshot wound like from the neck and it pierced the neck and it got out through the chin. And the parents just told me that this drone had flown in to the house through the window and it only shot the youngest child. Didn't shoot anybody else. It just shot the youngest child. And that to me, you know, you got to think about the level of cruelty there. You can shoot and kill everybody, right? But you don't want to kill everybody. You want them to suffer. They'll die eventually. But what you want is you want them to suffer and you kill the youngest child. And we used to see that a lot where they would go after the youngest child in a marketplace. They would shoot the youngest child in a family. You know, maybe the child's being carried by the mother, maybe he's walking, the mother's hand, and they would shoot the child. They wouldn't shoot the father. They wouldn't shoot the older brother. They would shoot the youngest child. That's classic. This double tap strike that you saw is another level of cruelty. It's the same kind of cruelty. You know, you wait till doctors and nurses are going up to try and treat the sick, and then you kill those doctors and nurses that are going there trying to retrieve the sick. You kill the civil defense workers, you kill the paramedics. You know, this is sadistic. It's
Yeah.
sadistic. And when you're there in Gaza and you're trying to change the bandages of a 9-year-old girl who's got 60% body burns, but there's no analgesia, and they won't allow in specialized burns dressings, and you have to peel back these bandages and it's ripping the skin
Oh,
off a child, and the screams, and we can't sedate them, we can't give them painkillers, and you're doing this every 2-3 days to this child, and you're watching because we don't even have the right type of antibiotics. We have a limited supply of antibiotics. Every day you're going on this ward to see this child that you helped resuscitate, right, that you helped keep alive, and then in the ward you're watching as maggots are beginning to grow out of her wounds and eat the wound alive, eat her alive as infection begins to grip her. That's what you're watching. And then you begin to think to yourself, should I have kept her alive? Is
mm,
all her pain now because of me? I mean, this is the level of cruelty that we're seeing in Gaza. And it's not even just, it's not like, you know, you put aside all that, it's the gaslighting that happens outside when they say that these are all AI generated images of
yeah.
starvation. Look, let's be very, very clear. Netanyahu, the arrest warrant that was issued for him, it was issued for him in November last year,
Right.
right, by the ICC, right? And one of the reasons why it was issued, or one of the charges against him, was using starvation as a weapon of war. That was in November last year. So that was before they cut off all the food and water in March. He was already in charge for using starvation as a weapon of war. So it's like an insult to all of our intelligences when they go, "Oh, there's plenty of food in Gaza. No, we're not starving them." You know, before the war even started, 40% of the children in Gaza before the war
Yeah.
had some form of malnutrition or deficiency because Israel counts the calories going in. So starvation is not being used as a weapon of war. Starvation is policy for Israel. It's a policy. It's not a weapon. It's their policy, right? That's what they've been doing even at times of peace in Gaza, where
Dr.
they
Mo,
count
can
the
you,
calories.
for those who don't know, and because we hear this,
Mhm.
but they don't understand it. Uh, right now, due to Israel's man-made starvation campaign, because they're the ones
Mhm.
who are blocking humanitarian aid,
Yes,
what we
yes.
know in America is that Gaza is suffering from phase 5 starvation. What does that
Yeah.
actually mean? Like, just to break that down to us, that what does phase 5 starvation look like, and what does that do to a human body?
So, you know, the IPN classification of stage 5 famine essentially means that 2 out of every 10,000 adults die a day from starvation, or 4 out of every 10,000 children a day are dying from starvation that are in phase 5. And 25% of the population are in phase 5. 50% of the population are in phase 4. Phase 4 is 1 in 10,000 adults or 2 in 10,000 children every day are dying from starvation. Now, starvation has lifelong consequences. Those phases that those people are in is now got to a stage where it's irreversible, the damage.
Mm,
These kids, at a certain age, if they get this form of malnutrition and starvation, they will have stunted growth for the rest of their life. Their metabolic processes are forever changed. As a matter of fact, this starvation right now is changing their DNA structure. Their DNA is changing. So, you know, when we talk about generational trauma that's being passed down, this is it right here. This is
yeah.
it. Their DNA is forever changing because of the starvation. Their own body is eating itself. It's breaking down its own tissue to stay alive. It's breaking down essential proteins in the body. It's breaking down organ tissue to stay alive. So this is what's happening now. They're going to have metabolic conditions. They're going to have insulin issues. They're going to have heart issues. They're going to have kidney problems for the rest of their lives, these children and these women and these men. And these children that are born in these harsh conditions will forever have um, stunted growth and will not develop properly. This is what's happening right now. So this is 1 million children right now that are being subjugated to this, to these crimes and these atrocities. And this is what I mean about the cruelty. The cruelty when you're the most sophisticated army in the region, backed by the most sophisticated army in human history, with unlimited money, unlimited supplies, and you resort to using uh, Genghis Khan-like tactics,
Mhm. I don't
even
think Genghis
despite
Khan
all the
was this
weapons
cruel.
he's got.
Mo, I think Genghis Khan used to like just eliminate them quickly. I don't think he prolonged the suffering like this. And he was a
But I don't
sadist.
think, well, yeah, but I don't think he was gaslighting people as well. You
Yeah,
know,
he
he
was
was
like, "I'm proud of it.
pretty,
Here's the head. I just took off. It's me.
yeah,
I'm Genghis Khan."
yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
speaking about the gaslighting, and I'm going to trigger some folks here. I don't want to trigger you, but speaking about the gaslighting and the cruelty, because this can't happen in a vacuum, folks. For those who have joined us, I'm talking to Dr. Mo, who has gone to Gaza several times. He's part of the Flotilla Coalition. He's a medical doctor describing in horrific detail, but we need to hear it about what the children and people of Gaza are suffering right now. This cruelty and you use the word cruelty, use the word gaslighting. Well, as you know, in the United States of America, where you're visiting right now, the United States of America is the number one donor to Israel. It has a special relationship. We give billions of dollars in aid, in military and weapons. We give it diplomatic support, and we also have
Mhm.
individuals here within the media infrastructure doing Israel's hasbara or propaganda. One of these institutions is the Free Press by Barry Weiss. Barry Weiss might now be given a cushy job in CBS because of the merger that was done. And Larry Ellison, who is a billionaire, hard right pro Israel Zionist, his son is now going to be the new president after this merger. And he wants to bring on Barry Weiss to be the ombudsman of CBS to make sure it's fair and balanced. I'm setting this all up because the Free Press, speaking about gaslighting, speaking about rationalizing or normalizing the cruelty, they ran a piece just a couple of days ago. All right, and I'm gonna August 18th. I'm gonna read the opening paragraphs. I want you to respond. 2 weeks ago, I noticed something strange. A photo of an emaciated toddler in Gaza, so powerful that it landed on the front page of the New York Times. And not just in the Times, the same child showed up in articles by CNN, CBS, and NPR. Different news organizations, different photographers, same boy. That set off alarm bells, so I did something simple that perhaps no one else has done. I ran the names of children who had been shown in viral images of starvation in Gaza through Google Translate and combed Arabic media for other details. What my reporting partner Tanya Lukyanova and I found was staggering. We were able to identify a dozen instances in which children who had been framed by mainstream media outlets as victims of alleged famine also suffered from serious pre existing health conditions. The title: Poster Children of Gaza's Hunger Crisis are actually suffering from other illnesses. Your response.
Well, why are they suffering from other illnesses? Because all the hospitals have been bombed and destroyed, because none of the medicine is allowed in. Do you know what they're basically saying is it's like, no, 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 guys, they're starving because they're disabled, because they already have pre-existing medical conditions. That makes it okay for them to starve to death. That's essentially how ridiculous that report is they're basically just saying that, hey, listen, they're starving to death, but they're starving to death because they're sick children anyway. That makes it okay. It's the healthy children, they're okay. It's these weak children that are starving to death. If these children were slightly healthy, they'd be okay. If they didn't have these pre-existing conditions, they would survive this little bit of starvation that's being thrown their way, this little bit of lack of food. That's essentially what she's saying. And it's vile because she wouldn't say something like this if it was Jewish children. She wouldn't say something like this about white children. She wouldn't say, "Oh, those kids that you saw on, October the 7th or whenever, they already had pre-existing conditions." So hey, listen, it's bad, but they already had pre-existing. We would never accept that. I would never accept that. I would never accept that. So,
The fact,
but
the
again,
fact that that got, the fact that got published Just
Well,
shows
that
you the
just
level of dehumanization that Palestinian children face in
yeah.
Western press.
Well, there was that girl that was shot in the West Bank when the IDF fired at the car, and she was 4 years old, and one of the bullets hit her. And Sky News in the UK described her as a young woman. She was 4 years
Mm,
old.
mm.
She was a young woman, though. And I think I saw on one of the things where it said in Gaza there have been 20 people that have died under the age of 18. What does under the age of 18 mean? It means they're children. But they won't even use these words because even the word child, dead child is provocative. It's too provocative. Even though you're describing what it is a child. We can't even use the term children anymore to describe them. And even if the child does have pre-existing conditions, they're still starving to death, right? They're still starving to death. It takes a lot to get even a child with pre-existing conditions to starve that much. And look what I said to you. When we're talking about 25% of the population being in stage 5 famine, which means 4 out of every 10,000 children die a day from starvation, right? Yeah, 4 out of every 10,000 children. That is dozens of children, right? Not all of them have pre-existing conditions. As a fact, most of them don't have pre-existing conditions. Most of the kids that have pre-existing conditions are already dead in Gaza. I was there last year in June when they were only letting in 50 to 60 aid trucks a day anyway, back then, of food. And we were seeing children that were coming in that had been starved to death. A lot of them with cerebral palsy were dying from starvation because we couldn't get specialized processed food for them, right? We were seeing that last year in June last year. So this is just like the level when they go, oh, but those kids are all got pre-existing conditions. Yeah, some of them do, but a lot of kids with pre-existing conditions are already dead because the ability to survive in Gaza has been so poor and desperate for almost 2 years now.
Well, even before, right, Dr. Mo, can you, for those who are joining us, and I think this is important, because you mentioned it briefly before, and I just want to get back to it. For the last 22 months, we've seen, I believe, an ongoing genocide, and we'll talk about that term and why it should be used. Israel's man-made deliberate starvation, because Israel has blocked
Yeah,
humanitarian aid, which is why there's
yeah.
phase 5 starvation in Gaza right now. Folks, there's no other phase after phase 5. Phase 5, there's no phase 6. There's phase 5 starvation in Gaza, man-made starvation. But even before October 7th, can you describe what these kids and Palestinian civilians were enduring? Because I think people thought, oh, it was normal. It was already a humanitarian crisis. People don't understand.
Yeah, 40% of the children in Gaza had some form of malnutrition before October the 7th. 60% of the children in Gaza had some form of PTSD before October the 7th or mental health condition. So I just want people to think about that, to really sit back and think about this. 40% of children before October the 7th had some form of deficiency or malnutrition. A third of children under the age of 4 had stunted growth. Think about that, of just the how dire the situation was in Gaza before then. Yes, the images that sometimes you saw of Gaza before the war was beautiful, but that was beautiful despite the blockade, the bombings. This was people trying to live their lives in an open air prison. And this is what I mean about how systemic this was. And like I said, starvation is not just being used as a weapon of war. Starvation was used as a policy. Starvation has always been the policy for 20 years. Food has always been controlled going in and out of Gaza, the amount of food. There's never been a time where Gazans have been well fed, you know? And that's just the truth. That's just the reality of it. And I think what people need to understand is that this form of control doesn't just come from food, it's everything. The most surveilled place in the world is Gaza. The most surveilled group of people in the world is Gaza. The most the most weapons that are tested, battle tested, are tested on who? On the people of Gaza. So imagine just being a imprisoned population for 20 years where all the latest technology and weapons are tested every couple of years on your children, where food is being used as a starvation policy for 20 years, where electricity is cut off every day for hours at a time. This is what's happening. This is what's been happening in Gaza for 20 years. So, people just don't understand the level of cruelty that was being inflicted on Gaza before the war. And if you knew this, then you knew what was going to come. You knew what was coming. You knew that this genocide was always going to be the final solution. Because when you have a country that is an apartheid regime, and it's been an apartheid regime for decades, what comes after the apartheid? What comes after the apartheid? Because you will only tolerate these people being in your proximity for so long. Eventually, you want to get rid of these people, and that's either through ethnic cleansing or it's through genocide. And Netanyahu has been very open about his plan for a greater Israel. As a matter of fact, he said that he believes that God is speaking to him and telling him about this greater Israel plan of his. So, do you know, all we've heard for over years and decades is that the Palestinian people don't want peace. It's the Israelis that want peace. And I think what we're learning now is yes, the Israelis have always wanted peace, a piece of this land, a piece of that land, a piece of that land. That's what they want, not peace.
But what we also hear in America and also the UK and probably Australia because of Sky News is Hamas. Always Hamas,
Yeah,
but Hamas. So when it comes to the occupation and the existing humanitarian crisis before October 7th, it's Hamas's fault. When it comes to
yeah,
bombing National Hospital, what did Benjamin Netanyahu say in his apology 2 days ago? Hamas. When it comes to killing of kids and starvation, Hamas. Uh, Hamas committed terrorist attacks on October 7th. Hamas has militants. Hamas has extremists. I have been very consistent, Mo. You've heard me on Piers Morgan. I
yeah,
condemn violent extremism. I don't care if it's Muslims who do it, ISIS, Al Qaeda, Hamas, Hezbollah, white supremacists, Nazis, war crimes by Israel. I try to be very consistent so I could, so I can be a moral, ethical person who condemns violent extremism and genocidal actions and intentions and rhetoric by anybody. That's just me, though. Dr. Mo. But you see a double standard in Western press and Western media where, like you said, we're being gaslit. Israel's crimes are being whitewashed, and anything that Israel does, let's be honest, it's justified because Hamas. Your response.
mhm. Well, it's the glorification of the crimes that they do. When there was the pager attack in Lebanon, and there was that openly that guy that threatened Mehdi Hassan and said, "I should send you a pager."
Oh
You
yeah,
know,
Ryan, that freak on CNN, forgetting his name.
yeah. When Benjamin Netanyahu comes to the White House and gifts Donald Trump a pager, right, as a gift, that what they did was a terrorist attack. It killed children. It's a terrorist attack because it's indiscriminate. They don't know who's carrying these pages. It killed children. It blinded women, right? And it went off in hospitals. It went off in grocery stores. This was a large scale, sophisticated terrorist attack, right? And it was hailed as, in the media and newspapers all across America as some kind of like intelligence brilliance. Because for them, the intelligence brilliance oh, a bunch of terrorists died. But it's an intelligence brilliance because a bunch of terrorists died. But then all of these children and women that died, that's just collateral damage. That doesn't take away from the greatness of it because their lives aren't important. Their lives don't matter. And what was interesting, and what a lot of people missed as well about that pager gift that Netanyahu gave to Donald Trump was that it was embedded in a piece of wood. It was
Mm,
on like a bark. That bark is from Lebanon. It was a
yep.
tree that they cut down in Lebanon,
Cedar
right?
tree.
The cedar tree. And when you think about that, right? Yeah, just even even the way that they glorify the crimes and the atrocities that they did. There's even a sadism, sadistic robbery, thieves of even the gifts that they provide, even the way that they celebrate it. It's sadistic, it's twisted, and look, the fact that when we had the Iraq War and a million a million Iraqi civilians were killed, right? That's what's led the way to this. Is that we have been conditioned as a society right? Whether we care to admit it or not, that it's okay for 1 million Arabs and Muslims to die, even if it's in an illegal war. Because who's been brought to justice for the Iraq war? Nobody.
Nobody.
So 1 million people were killed in that war, millions, tens of millions displaced, right? And because of that war, because of these tens of millions and these million casualties, we have begun to accept that it is okay for that to happen, even though everybody openly admits that, yeah, we shouldn't have gone to Iraq. But 1 million people died. There's no accountability for that. And what that's done is to the psyche of everybody is it's made everybody feel that it is okay that 1 million people die in a mistake. And it's okay because it's a mistake. There was no weapons of mass destruction. Yeah, it was a mistake. We were trying to remove Saddam. He's an evil guy. But well, these things happened. You know what I mean? And then obviously from that you got ISIS, and now you've got the flourishing of terrorist organizations all over the place. Iran's got a firmer grip on the whole region because of the instability of Iraq, right? So when you look at all of these things, you begin to realize actually the the sadism in which what goes on here, because the level of racism that goes on, that you can destabilize an entire region of 300 million people, kill 1 million of them, destroy their future and their prosperity. It was like when, I think it was was it the foreign or the Secretary of State of America in the 90s, when the interviewer asked her, said, are you okay with the fact that 500,000 Iraqi babies died because of the sanctions that you put on? And she
Madeline
said,
Albright.
yes. Madison Albright, yeah. And she said, yeah,
Madeline
that's fine.
Albright. Yeah, like she said, it was worth it.
It was worth it. Would they say that if it was Jewish babies? Would she say it was worth it? Right? But this is what we as a society are consented to on a subconscious level, where you have members of governments saying that it is okay and it's worth the price to kill 500,000 black and brown babies. This is what we are conditioned with. This is what we're fighting against. This is this is where it's got to a stage for Muslims and people of the global South, that we almost have to live in a society that is acceptable for us to have 1 million of us dead and not bat an eyelid, to have our entire countries destroyed based on a lie and nobody held accountable.
Yep.
Where if the ICC was to dare hold anybody accountable for crimes that were committed against black and brown people, it'll be sanctioned, it'll be defunded, they'll come after the ICC, they'll come after the ICJ, they'll try and break them down, these court systems that they built, that we here in this country and in the UK and in the West, we built these courts. We built them as an extension of our power and our government's influence on the world. And yet, when those tools are begin to use against us, we want to dismantle them. And that's how far the cruelty goes. That we are willing to destroy our own governance systems in order to keep killing black and brown babies.
For those who are saying, I can't believe that former U.S. Secretary of State Madeleine Albright said that. Yes, she did. Go back. It's an infamous interview when she publicly admitted that she thinks the death of 500,000 Iraqi children were, quote, worth it. I know people are like, no way. I saw two or three people. I can't imagine her saying that. That's what she said, folks. And then also I saw Sylvia, who checked out, and she said, I can't hear this. This is too much. I know it's a lot, folks. For those who are joining us late, nearly 900 people. I've been talking to Dr. Mo, British Australian a physician, Palestinian background, who has gone to Palestine and gone with the Flotilla Coalition, has helped do his part to do what he can to save these starving children, amputee children, civilians who have been shot in the skull. He's given an eyewitness testimony and account to what has been happening, the humanitarian crisis. And what we're talking about is accountability, right? You have to be a witness to it so people are informed, so people know, so then people are aware, so then people can use their voices and they can use their votes. And the reason why it's so important for the United States of America, folks, and the reason people, because I'm sure you get this, Mo, I get this a lot. Well, why? Why are you always so concerned about Israel? And how come you don't care about the Uyghurs and the Rohingya and the Sudanese? And I say, I do. I've actually written about it and talked about it, and I call it out. But with Israel, because it calls itself a democratic nation state, because it is part of the international community, and because I'm an American and I know that my taxpayer dollars go to Israel, my money goes to fund Israel, that without U.S. funding, U.S. military, U.S. support, Israel
Yeah.
could not occupy the Palestinian people, folks. Without U.S. support, funding, and weapons, Israel could not engage in this ongoing genocide in Gaza. It just can't. Literally, it cannot. We are complicit. So I believe that I, as an American citizen, living in
Mhm.
what was used to be a free society, still kind of quasi maybe is Mo. Let's see, in 6 months, we can at least influence our elected officials to do something that might actually compel Israel to stop, right? And one of the things that we can do is to name what we're seeing. What we can do is call it a genocide. And the reason why calling it a genocide, in my opinion, I want your take on this, is first and foremost, I believe it accurately describes what we're witnessing, what you just talked about. I'm not the only one. Bet Salem, Israeli human rights organization, calls it a genocide. Human Rights Watch calls it a genocide. Amnesty calls it a genocide. Professor Omar Bartaf, who I had on the Left Hook last week, one
Mhm.
of the preeminent scholars of genocide, an Israeli Jewish American who served in the IDF when he was a young man, calls it a genocide. But more importantly, Mo, what it does, it triggers a legal responsibility and a moral responsibility of European nations and the United States then to intervene and stop the genocide because we've signed on to the Convention Against Genocide, right? So
Yeah.
you've been there, you've seen it.
Mhm. Mhm.
When you hear Democrats, this is Catherine Clark. For you don't know who Catherine Clark is, Catherine Clark is a liberal. Catherine Clark is from Massachusetts. Catherine Clark is a Democrat. Catherine Clark is a leader, House Minority Whip. A couple of days ago, she would talk about what was happening. She said there's, quote, genocide and destruction in Gaza. 2 days later, due to
She
pressure,
walked it back.
she walked it back. And you still don't have Democratic leaders using the word genocide. I had Ro Khanna on here last week, a couple of days ago. Ro Khanna, he agrees with a lot of what you and I have said, but still won't call it a genocide. Uh, you're seeing Hakeem Jeffries and Senator Schumer still not call it a genocide. In fact, Senator Schumer last month took a photo with the war criminal Benjamin Netanyahu. And then what Ro Khanna said was this. He says, you and me are on the same page. We want the same end result. AIPAC hates me. I'm trying to get the end of the war. I support not sending weapons. Why is it so important for me to call it a genocide? I'm waiting for the ICC's final determination. I call it war crimes. I call it brutality. I call it illegal. I call it chaos. Why? Why should we use the word genocide when it is so triggering to so many folks in America? Your response to that argument?
Because there is no excuse for a genocide. There's no human shields for a genocide. There is no Hamas is stealing the aid for a genocide. There is no, well, we have to occupy them because they are brutal and they're barbarians. Once the word genocide is used and once genocide is established as what it is, there is nothing that justifies a defensive genocide. We did a defensive genocide. Once genocide becomes the talking point and the focal point, it changes everything, right? Because there's nothing that the other side can say that can justify a genocide. You can talk about the brutality of October the 7th all you want, but once you say, well, what was done in response was a genocide, it almost eclipses everything else because we know that a genocide, the killing en masse of people and the wiping out of those people en masse, especially for this prolonged period of time, it would completely change the narrative around Israel. Because if Israel is seen to be committed a genocide, what kind of democracy commits a genocide? If it's a democracy that commits a genocide, it's no longer a democracy. It no longer holds those values that it pertains. So the word genocide and the legal definition of a genocide is actually um, destructive to Israel. It would destroy the very fabric of what Israel is. And that's why they are so against calling it a genocide, because as soon as they call it a genocide, the whole charade, the whole house of cards comes tumbling down. And that's why they don't want to call it a genocide. It's not because they don't know it's a genocide, right? It's because it changes the narrative. Because if Benjamin Netanyahu was to say we're not using food as a weapon of war, it's go, well, actually, it's a genocide. That is part and parcel of it. Any excuse that they have, it's gone. Oh, we're not targeting hospitals. You're committing a genocide. Yes, you are targeting hospitals. It's all part of the definition. So it ticks everything that they deny, and that's why they want to keep it away from using it in a genocide. And that's why we have to keep campaigning and calling it a genocide for what it is.
Yeah, and the gaslighting, just the sheer the thing what's so infuriating. Anyone who's listened to Dr. Mo, and don't worry for the nearly 1,000 people who are watching us now. I told you Dr. Mo would get 1,000 at least. Who are joining us late. I'm going to have this entire conversation up later today. I strongly recommend going back and listening to it with a transcript. But thank you for joining us. We're still talking to Dr. Mo, physician who is Palestinian, also British and Australian, former jiu-jitsu champion, played rugby, had the nickname Beast from the Middle East. You're like, why is he called Beast from the Middle East? That was his name because he was the beast on the field, and he's trying his best to heal and save lives in Gaza and around the world. He's been there several times. He was part of the Flotilla Coalition. You have to name it, right? You have to name something for what you see. And the fact that after 22 months, and I'm just going to, this is top of my head. Who am I? I'm nobody. This is top of my head. I'm the guy who's going to tell you all what we've seen in Gaza, right? Past 22 months. 63,000 Palestinians killed by Israel. Lancet, the medical journal, says that is a severe undercount, that the civilian casualties are probably 40% higher, all right? But even 63,000 is disgusting. 150,000 Palestinians injured. We kind of casually forget the injured, but we shouldn't, because Gaza has more child amputees than any other place in the world. Another way of saying that is Israel has created more child amputees in Gaza than any other place in the world. Okay. More children have been killed in Gaza in the past 2 years than all the children killed in all the war zones combined. Now, for those who joined us a bit late, we're talking about phase 5 starvation. Due to Israel's man-made starvation, because Israel has deliberately blocked humanitarian aid to Gaza, we now have phase 5 starvation in Gaza, folks. There's no other phase after phase 5. And as Dr. Mo described, in addition to literally children and adults dying from phase 5 starvation, when you get to phase 5 starvation, now you're dealing with lifetime, life-altering problems. Kidney damage, liver damage, heart damage, physical stunting of growth, rewiring of genetic code, right? Another thing that we don't talk about, Dr. Mo, and you and I were talking about mental health before we press record. I had a friend yesterday. We were just hanging out, a bunch of Muslim guys. And he was talking to me about his boss. And his boss is Arab American, and he's married to a Palestinian woman. And he was just telling a story of his boss, a guy I know, who said, man, I've been married to a Palestinian woman my whole life. He's been married happily for like 30 years. And he says, these WhatsApps of Palestinian families and friends. And he was saying, being married to a Palestinian woman, I can tell you, man, I feel so terrible because in addition to this, all the numbers I just described, the death and destruction, what people don't talk about is the trauma, the nonstop active trauma of what Palestinians have to endure. And the example he gave me is every day on this WhatsApp, his wife says, yeah, lost another cousin, niece gone. Someone just lost 2 generations. Yeah, someone's uncle's starving. Oh, nope, that girl died. It's unending. Talk to us about the mental damage, the psychological damage, the trauma that Palestinians in Gaza and then also Palestinians outside. You're Palestinian. Like, these are your people. What they have to endure, which is something I don't think enough people talk about because it's not physical.
So look, I'll tell you about the traumas that the children in Gaza endure right now in Gaza, right? When you get a mass casualty event and you get these children coming in, right? There was one girl, she was called Janine, and 26 members of her family were killed in this airstrike. And she survived because she slept in her father's arms. So her father was completely dismembered from the bombs. And her sister, who was next to her, was cut in half by the bombs. When they dug her out from under the rubbles, they found her sister in half. And her, underneath her father's body, she had a severe head injury, right? Now, when she came into the hospital, she's got a broken leg, she's got a severe head injury. And as all of this is happening, we're putting chest drains into children. right? We're doing it without any analgesia, sometimes without even sedation. And what's happening is we are traumatizing the child by essentially, when we're putting in a big chest drain in, by stabbing them in the chest. We are taking a knife, holding a child down, and stabbing the child in the chest, right? And going all the way through till you hear the pop,
Oh,
till blood starts squirting out, and the child is conscious when you're doing that to a child, right? So think about what that must do to a child when a child is being held down so you could stab them, right? So you can get a chest drain in. And then think about what that does to the child who is literally on the floor watching a group of adults hold down a child as they stab them and blood pouring out everywhere, as they're seeing people being brought in body bags, what that does to the trauma. And she's traumatized, this girl, because she's literally, when she was pulled out from under the rubble, she's had to see her sister torn in half. She's had her own father bleed out to death on top of her, covered in her father's blood, her dead father's blood, and her sister cut into pieces right next to her. And then when we go into the emergency department and in the emergency room, where she's watching us as we essentially butcher other children to try and keep them alive. That's the trauma that these kids have to deal with. That's the trauma that these kids have to deal with. And then, when we talk about the Palestinians that live outside of Gaza, I mean, where do you want to start with the trauma for them? The survivor's guilt, you know? The fact that they're like, why am I here? And they're there suffering. The fact that, whenever you're a Palestinian, your whole existence outside of Gaza is to support your family in Palestine. That's what it's there for. You get like you have to carry the burden, the financial burden of this. You know, you have to watch the dehumanization, the language of your people. You have to always center Jewish and Israeli lives over the fact that you've just lost 3 generations of your family. But you have to center, the fact that people are running into bomb shelters in Tel Aviv. That has to be the front and center when you talk. The fact that when you get asked a question, you have to condemn your own people before, and that's used as a litmus test. Think about that, what that does to you psychologically as a person, as a human being, that I have to condemn myself and my people first before I'm allowed to have a conversation, before I'm allowed to have an opinion. And I have to condemn my own people while my people are starving to death and being killed in the hundreds daily. I still have to condemn them for that. So w- th- this trauma that Palestinians carry and this dehumanization, it's, the way that I look at it is sometimes I look at this and I go, you know what? It just shows you how amazing Palestinians are. The fact that we spend billions of dollars a year and people are threatened all over the world just to dehumanize them. And yet still, despite all of that dehumanizing, all around the world, you see the Palestine flags flying up in the air. You see millions of people protesting and marching for Palestine. And you think to yourself, wow, even against all the odds, all the bombs, all the weapons, all the propaganda, all the companies that are against the Palestinian people, that are actively supplying and funding and this genocide, and yet Palestinian people still seem to occupy the hearts and minds of millions of people around the world. Their land might be occupied, but Palestine occupies so many people's hearts and minds. And that's the beautiful thing about being Palestinian. And yes, it is hard. And yes, it is tough, the dehumanizing, but also as well, it's so amazingly beautiful to see how even though that you are being victimized and traumatized, that millions of people around the world are standing with you because you're Palestinian. And that's the thing that gets me through this, is I know that there's millions of people around the world that'll just love me for me being Palestinian and nothing else. Me just surviving what's happened and nothing else. So, that's always it's always the beauty of being a Palestinian.
And I hope you're getting a lot of love while you're visiting us in the United States of America. What I've got the gray hair, Mo. I'm older than you, but I was talking to folks, and I said, one positive news, if we can find any positive news in the horror that we're watching every day, is I never thought in my lifetime that a majority of Americans who would be polled, whether it's Pew or Gallup or CNN, would be pro-Palestinian. A majority of Democrats would say enough sending aid to Israel. In my lifetime,
Yeah.
I'm like, maybe towards the end, if inshallah Allah lets me live to my 70s or something. Maybe then.
Yeah.
But to see such a rapid shift in 2 years, the only other time I've seen such a rapid shift, I mentioned this before in American politics on a contentious issue, was marriage equality between Obama
Mm.
1 and Obama 2. You've seen an entire
Yeah.
generation radicalized in real time by genocide that they've seen streamed on their phones. Young people around the world in Glastonbury saying free, free Palestine. Kneecap saying, we don't give a shit. We'll say whatever we have to say. You see Jewish students linking arms with black students and Palestinian students and Muslim students saying end the war, right? A lot of folks, a lot of these college protesters were Jewish Americans saying not in our name. You're seeing Zoran Mamdani, who might become the first Muslim American mayor of New York. And a report came out 2 weeks ago in the New York Times, Mo, that young Jewish Americans are supporting Mamdani not in spite of his views on Palestine, but because of his
Mhm.
views on Palestine. So we are seeing in our lifetime right now a remarkable shift where I believe Israel, well, not I believe, looking at the numbers, Israel has lost the majority, Israel has lost the youth, and Israel has lost the culture. And it reminds me of what happened in the 80s when there was a remarkable shift against South Africa and apartheid South Africa. It was the kids. And there was a crackdown, folks. People forget, American empire tried to crack down on the kids, but the kids won at the end of the day. And this is not just apartheid, this is apartheid, occupation, and genocide. Folks, and Israel and their leaders, much like America's leaders, are fascists. They're looking for short-term wins, but I think that there's going to be long. I mean, I think the short-term win is going to come at an immense cost. But I do think, I hope, the Muslim in me that says inshallah, but also hopes, as you know, hope requires action. Is that inshallah this could create a groundswell of reform and change. That's the hope.
Do you know? I honestly believe that one day, Palestinians will be so revered around the world for setting the world free, because the Palestinians have opened the hearts and minds of so many people the to the hypocrisy of the system that we live in. They've opened up the hearts and minds of millions of people around the world to the to the to the lies, and to our politicians who are controlled by foreign entities. That's what the Palestinians have done. The Palestinians have shined a mirror onto the world and forced everyone to look at themselves, and forced societies to look at what they deem acceptable and not. And that's what the Palestinians have done. And the Palestinians have done that by resisting for 60, 70 years, by refusing to leave, by choosing to survive, by choosing to endure. They're going to set the whole world free. And one day we'll read about it in textbooks, at how this little group of defenseless people stood up against an empire, and they did that with their own grace. They did that with their grace. They did that with their bravery and their courage. They did that by running to sites that were being bombed to help each other, where children who were starving were scooping food out of their own plate and giving it to the child next to them, while we were fighting over toilet paper in COVID. That's what the Palestinian people are going to do. Palestinian people are going to set us all free, and I believe that. I really believe that. And when you go there to Gaza and you see the beauty of these people right here, you begin to understand. You understand. I've seen people who never understood religion before, never understood a belief in God, and they look at Gaza and they look at Palestine and they look at these people, and and instantly to them it changes their perception on Islam. It changes their perception on Arabs. That's what the Palestinian people have done. And that's why they hate them. And that's why they don't want them to succeed. Because Palestine would, first of all, it would set the whole Middle East free. Because if Palestine is free, a lot of these dictators don't need to be in power anymore to protect, foreign interests, because Palestine is free. And once the Middle East becomes free, it frees the whole world. So, this is yeah, man, it's going to happen in our lifetime, inshallah. It's going to happen in our lifetime. A genocide is the end phase of what happens. A genocide is the end phase of this conflict. It's the end phase of an empire. It's the end phase of this entity. Because when you commit a genocide, it means that you've lost control. It means that you've lost control of the narrative. It means that you've lost control of the population that you're trying to control. You can no longer subdue them. And that's why you resort to such extreme levels of violence. And, my father always used to say this to me when I was a kid, and he always used to say, Palestine will be free one day. And I always used to say, yeah, when the Arabs, when they come together and they suddenly all come together, they'll free Palestine one day. And he goes, oh, no, no, no. It's going to be free by the hands of Palestinians themselves. They're the only ones that will free themselves. It'll be the Palestinians. And you know what? He was totally right. It was always going to be the Palestinians that freed themselves. It was always going to be their heroism. It was always going to be their sacrifice. And that's what we're seeing right now. And, you know, uh, it's hard being a Palestinian, but it's also an immensely proud thing to be Palestinian as well.
And they have allies. They have a multiracial, multi-generational coalition that is following their lead and saying free, free Palestine, and enough to fascism, enough to occupation, enough to racism, enough to apartheid. I will end with this one note. I've been there 3 times. I've never been to Gaza, West Bank, Jerusalem, Haifa, and each time I've gone as a brown-skinned American, I'll tell you, Palestinians, the West Bank folks are occupied people, by the way. We haven't even talked about the West Bank. And I remember one time, I'll just give a story. It was Sabbath, right? So I think I was walking in Jerusalem and I was with the late great Tayyiba Taylor, elderly black Muslim woman,
Yeah,
senior citizen. And she was walking and we're like, oh my God, there's no cabs anywhere. And she was struggling a bit, but she didn't complain. She's a senior citizen, but still. And I did a small prayer. I'm like, Allah, please let there be because I could walk it. But I said,
yeah,
Allah, find me some cab driver, something. It was Sabbath, right? So we're trying to we're in this neighborhood. I think we're in a Jewish neighborhood in Jerusalem, and we get this cab comes out of nowhere. It's a Palestinian brother, and he sees Tayyaba because she's wearing a hijab. He goes, "Hey, what are you guys? Salam alaikum. Where are you guys from?" And I'm like, "Hey, we're from America. We're visiting. Salam alaikum." He goes, "Oh, where you guys got to go?" We got to go here. He goes, "Oh, that's a long walk. Why don't you come in my cab?" So we go in his cab, and we just start chatting. Really nice guy.
mm,
And he goes, "Well, I usually don't come here, but I just had a feeling, so I just came here. I'm so glad I saw you. Or you're visiting. Thank you for visiting. Go back, tell people the story about Palestinians, right? We have a great chat."
mm,
And this Palestinian cab driver, not making that much money, folks. Okay. He drops us off, and I say, I'm already made the intention, Mo. I'm going to give him a nice tip. You know what he says?
yeah,
Refuses to take my money. Now we go
yeah,
into a Desi Arab uncle standoff. I have to give you
yeah,
money. No, no, no.
yeah,
Please. No, no, no. And then this guy, Palestinian cab driver, who needs the money,
yeah.
said, do not insult me. It was my honor driving you. Thank you. Just go back and tell people what you saw. Thank you for visiting. Right. Every single time you go to Palestinians, you go to the souk. Oh, you're visiting
Yeah.
from America? Oh, here's a piece of fruit. I'm like, no, no, please let me pay for it. No, no, no. And so to see people be dignified and generous and gracious, even though they're denied dignity, I wish people saw that side of not just Palestinians, but like you said, Arabs and Muslims who have collectively been dehumanized and bombed by this country for more than 2 decades. And I'll give you the final word to you. We were supposed to go to three, but final word to you, Mo, for people who feel helpless, for people who feel like, oh, there's nothing they can do to stop this genocide.
Look, I would say this. The pro-Palestine movement has always been a people's movement. The Palestinian cause has always been carried on ordinary people's shoulders. And it is us, you know, that can change it. It's not the politicians, and it's the people themselves that will change this. You know, everybody says, what can I do? I'm only one person. But if 6 billion people say, what can I do? I'm only one person, you begin to see the maths. So everyone just needs to keep pushing in the same direction. It doesn't matter how helpless you feel, because those people in Gaza haven't given up. They're being starved, they're being bombed, and they haven't given up. And if they haven't given up, we don't have a right to give up either. So just keep going, keep fighting, keep talking about Gaza, and the tide is turning, and the tide will keep turning, and eventually, inshallah, we'll have our freedom one day.
I'm talking to Dr. Mo, nicknamed Beast from the Middle East, physician from England and Australia, Palestinian, who has gone to Gaza several times, part of the flotilla coalition, was on the flotilla with Greta and others. He's in America for a few days. I'm trying to connect him with people. I don't need any help because he's already connected with all the right people. But for the 1,200 people who are joining us now, this is Dr. Mo's first Substack Live. I told you it'd be worth it, Mo. I said, get on Substack Live. It'd be worth it. But he's here for a couple of days. I know there's a lot of influencers watching right now, people with large platforms. Reach out to him, try to get him on. He always keeps busy trying to share his story, share the perspective as a physician who's gone there and seen firsthand the phase 5 starvation and the genocide. Folks, this will be published later today. Once it's published, for folks who have joined us late, strongly recommend listening to Dr. Mo. We've been talking for the past hour. And if you can, please share it. Everything is free on the left hook. I'm a terrible capitalist. I've kept everything free without paywalls. If you have a few dollars, give it to what's a good charity, Dr. Mo, a charity for children, for Palestinians.
I would just say the things to donate to is things like MAP, Medical Aid Palestine. They're great organizations that do a lot of work. PalMed, they're another one as well. These are organizations that are definitely help with the medical situation in Gaza. So, yeah, donate to them and look, donate to anybody. Donate to World Central Kitchen. They do a lot of the feeding programs right now in Gaza. Um, but whatever you do, just make sure that you do your diligence. You can donate to Islamic Relief, donate to One Ummah. These are great charities as well that do a lot of work on the ground in Gaza. Pious Projects is another one. Here in America, it's an American NGO that does amazing work.
Doctors Without
Please donate
Borders,
to
World Central Kitchen.
them. Yeah, these big major organizations. But, I would say if you want your money to go further, donate to things like Pious Projects, One Ummah, um, MAP. Pious Projects and One Ummah, they don't have administration fees. So 100% of the proceeds go to where it needs to go.
My wife has also said the Palestinian Relief Fund is great. PCRF.
That's
Are
awesome.
you familiar?
Yeah.
Folks,
Yeah.
and then before I let you go, Dr. Mo, shamelessly promote yourself. How can people promote you and how can people connect you with individuals so that we could get you on American TV sets and American shows?
Well, reach out to me. I'm on Instagram, Beast from the _Middle East. And I'm also on Twitter, Dr. Mo Mustafa, Momustafa. So yeah, give us a follow, send us a message, get us connected. We want to try and get this message out as far and wide. We're trying to build a children's hospital in Gaza. So yeah, all the support will be great.
I'll have this post up later tonight, inshallah, on my Substack, The Left Hook, and I will try to put links to some of these charities that Dr. Mo has mentioned. And also, I'm going to link to his Instagram. I kept him longer, but hopefully it was worthwhile for people to listen to someone who's been on the ground. And this was, I hope, far more pleasant than the time that we first met on Piers Morgan. Mo's here in LA. He's going to be traveling across America for a bit before he goes back. So I really hope people can reach out to him. He's exhausted, but he'll make the time to share the story. Folks, I'll be back in about 3 minutes with my co-host Danielle Moody to break down the chaos that's happening in America, Mo, because speaking about fascism and socialist dictatorships, apparently, this is what we're dealing with in the United States of America right now. And if I have time, I know God's watching. God is watching right now in the Dark Mo. It's not actual God. It's an avatar, a person who calls himself God. Mo's like, brother, what are you talking about? God's watching right now. I might try to make time to do his show later on today. Folks, be kind, be empathetic. Again, you can all do something. You can all do something to help pressure elected officials, especially if you're an American watching. Some positive news will end with, for the first time, a majority of Democratic senators 27, including Bernie Sanders, voted to stop sending aid to Israel. That number is growing. They're looking at the base. They're looking at the dwindling registrations. They're looking at the protests. They're looking at the low poll numbers. And they realize that Israel-Palestine has become a litmus test for the Democratic Party moving forward. They can't wishy-wash it. They can't both sides it. They can't ignore it. They can't. So the smart ones realize, oh crap, we have to stop taking money from AIPAC, stop listening to Jonathan Greenblatt of the ADL, and we actually have to use our voice and power to end Israel's not just genocide, folks. It's important. The occupation and also the apartheid and the expansion of settlements, all of the above. Thank you, Dr. Mo. Fantastic work as always. Inshallah, I hope to meet you in person. If you ever come to DC, Virginia, let me know. I'll feed you really good food. Dr. Mo, again, Beast from the Middle East. This, inshallah, interview, we've been talking for about 70 minutes, longer than I thought we would. So thanks, Dr. Mo, for being a trooper. It'll be up later today on the Left Hook. Be kind, be decent, and please, oh, please don't be a fascist or an occupier. Assalamu alaikum, man. Take care.
Assalamu alaikum, man. Take care. Bye bye.